begin this conversation this morning with Colonel Yomidare, retired security officer of the Army, former director, Nigerian Army Legal Services, and he's also a security consultant. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Ayo, for having me on board.
The spate of insecurity is one thing, but the killing of soldiers who are on the job of ensuring security, in this particular case, containing insecurity and going on a peace mission. The burial and all of the activities in recent time is what many people are talking about. For you, what's the most striking thing so far? The president has spoken and made some appeals and made some declarations. The chief of army staff, chief of defense staff have also offered their words and given some details about the lives of the people who died and the lives that they left behind. And there's also the opinion of the members of the family that, look, we want justice. This had a situation. One of the mothers said, my son was going to get married in not too distant future. In all of this, what is your take? What stands out the most for you in all of this conversation?
Well, Ayo, thank you very much. And I'd like to say at this moment that this is very, very sad, and I wish to pray that the souls of these departed gallants rest in peace. It is most unfortunate that we're experiencing this, because when you look at the military, Section 217 of the Nigerian Constitution spells out the role of the armed forces, which, amongst others, is to suppress insurrection and to act in aid of civil authorities. And then there's also a rider to that, and any other thing that there might be, any other role that might be assigned them, by the National Assembly, the president, with the approval of the National Assembly. Now, having said this, you see, when soldiers get out and they want to prepare to go to war, aside the enemy, their objective, they see the populace as friendly forces. They see the populace as friendly forces. And in the instant case, the soldiers have been called upon to help make peace in this community where they have communal crisis between two communities. So they got up and they were going there, which is part of their constitutional responsibility or duties. And what I see play out here is an ambush. They went into an ambush, and who organized the ambush, unfortunately, is the friendly forces. One of the belligerents, one of the community who felt they feel aggrieved. And the soldiers were murdered in cold blood. They were not only murdered, but their corpses were so dishonored. It was a heinous crime, the way I say it. And thank God, people have been talking about this. People have been expressing their views, some for the military, some against the military. Well, in situations like this, and especially maybe from the community where this has taken place, they want to defend themselves. But to my mind, and I believe to any sane or reasonable mind, there's no justification for this kind of killing, because these are soldiers. Because ordinarily, if they were to engage the whosoever the faceless murderers are, they won't overcome trained soldiers. But on this instance, these soldiers are going to make peace, to restore peace. But let's keep fingers crossed, because investigations are ongoing.
Are you hopeful?
About the investigation?
Yes.
Oh, very hopeful. Very hopeful.
How so?
Well, because even from the expression, look at the burial yesterday. I mean, the president had to even bestow honor onto these gallant soldiers, and their families are going to be taken care of within the next 90 days. So, unlike what we have been saying, the president has given an order. He has given a presidential order, and I'm sure the army headquarters is not taking it lightly. And now the defense headquarters itself, they've moved in. People have been declared wanted. And all I can say is Nigerians, and especially the community, should try as much as possible, to cooperate with the military. One cannot rule out and say that, oh, this community is a bad community. No. There are still sane people. There are good people. It's unfortunate that this has played out in a very wrong mood.
You talked about the burial that took place yesterday, which the president personally attended, and yes, that needs to be underscored.
Absolutely.
To make it known that it is something that the Federal Republic of Nigeria, not just the federal government, but the entire Federal Republic of Nigeria considers very, very important.
Yes. For
the president himself, who is also the commander-in-chief
of the armed forces,
yes, to attend personally. I think that is very significant.
Very, very significant and commendable. I salute the president for that gesture. Yes.
Excuse me. What's important to me there is the reportage concerning the fact that the families are also saying one thing or the other. Their breadwinners are gone, the child was going to get married and they didn't get married. What, in your opinion, or from your experience, how does the family, or how do the families get closure? How do you see that happening? Because everyone is emotionally wounded right now, including the institution of the military. But how do we find closure? Because the president says there should be no reprisal, and rightly so. But at the same time, the wound must not fester. How do we achieve closure?
Well, what has happened. Even if you raise down the whole of Okwama community, that will not bring any life back. And like it's always said, you can't achieve anything from going that wrong path. But what I like to say at this point in time is there's need for a resetting of our mindsets as Nigerians about the military. Because the military is the bastion of our nation. If you destroy the military, then there will be no nation. Yes, every time or any time you have military operations, there's what you call unintended consequences of military operation. And some of these consequences, some might be positive, some might be negative. But don't forget that the soldiers are human beings too. They're Nigerians. And like I said, there's need for a change of mindset.
And who is going to engineer that?
Well,
who will be taking the lead?
Well, it behoves on first the military itself. So when you have crises, when you have situations like this, when you have incidents like this, lessons, there must be what you call, a post-mortem, an appraisal of what has happened.
And what are some of the lessons that you think may have been learned from this experience?
Well, some of the lessons, I believe, is, in the first place, there's a failure. There's an institutional failure. And institutional failures cut across. It cuts across from the military, I mean, from the federal itself down even to the institution, the military. So I even look at a situation whereby the lieutenant colonel, the commander himself, whatever might have even taken him to that exercise, leading, the two majors and a captain and the rest of the men.
Okay. Well, we've since been joined by...
Okay.
My apologies. We've since been joined by Gloria Ballason, who is a legal practitioner and CEO, House of Justice, joins us virtually. Thank you for joining us this morning, madam.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
Let me begin with you straight with the justice angle, since you are CEO of the House of Justice. The Nigerian Army has declared 8 persons wanted in connection with the killing of those 17 soldiers in Okwama community in Delta State. How significant is that for you in the process of seeking justice?
Well, let me first begin by joining with all well-meaning people to condole with the families of the slain soldiers. No Nigerian who does not have to die should die. We've lost too many people, and having 16, 17 more is 17 too many. But that said, I think it's important that the process of justice is activated. We are glad that the route that was taken during the Zakibiam situation is not the route that the military is taking right now. This is being hopeful that the lessons of what transpired in Zakibiam has been learned, because when the military went to Zakibiam for the Operation No Living Thing, more than 200 people were killed when about 17, 19 soldiers were killed in Benue. And if that repeats itself in Delta, it will be terrible. And so we welcome the process of justice that is being activated. The news is that there are some people who have been invited so far to give information. We hope that they will be treated in accordance with the rules of engagement of human rights, so that they themselves do not become victims and made to confess, perhaps under pressure or under duress. I think that the military is intelligent enough to conduct this process in such a way that we can arrive at justice. That said, I should quickly also add that in this conversation, we must also discuss the need for the rights of all human beings to be respected, including the parent right to life. You would recall that on the 3rd of December 2023, only last year, over 300 civilians were killed in Chudunburi in Birnin-Gwari local government in Kaduna State via 2 airstrikes. As I speak to you, that conversation seems to have muted. And the Nigerian Army took responsibility for those airstrikes. We also want to be sure that the effort at finding justice doesn't just end with the death of the military officers, the 17 military officers who were killed in Okwama in Geli local government, but that also that extends to civilians everywhere. There are also lessons that we need to really learn. This should be a teachable moment. I listened to Colonel Dare as he quoted Section 217 of the Constitution about what the duties of the Nigerian Armed Forces is. The need to protect Nigeria from external aggression. They need to also protect the territorial integrity of the country, and also for them to suppress insurrection where the president, through the National Assembly, invites them. Years ago, it was Paul who wrote and said that a soldier should not be involved in civilian affairs. And I think that saying comes true even now. We have seen a lot of our Nigerian soldiers being involved in civilian affairs. I think that this is really a moment where there needs to be a retooling and also reevaluation of how the Nigerian Army is being used. We have seen, especially in recent times, that Nigerian soldiers are even used as escorts for civilians. And I think that is lowering the rank and the honor with which we hold the members of the Nigerian Armed Forces. particularly also when we look at the Delta State incident. The issue that seems to be coming up is that it was an issue of land. And one is one to ask, was the National Boundary Commission involved in this process? Were there people who were skilled enough to handle these processes of negotiation? Were they brought in? What really transpired? It's difficult to say without any investigation being done. But what we want as a country is a situation where we de-escalate this wanton loss of human lives. But it's also important for the Nigerian people to know that we cannot make a divide between members of the security agents and us, because they are us and we are them. And once we're able to come to that sense of understanding that we are all Nigerians, we belong to the same family, then we can actually look out for each other. And where there are issues that needs to be addressed, we can do so in the spirit of humanity and with a sense of civility that does not allow us to lose lives unnecessarily.
Well, a very interesting perspective you've brought into the conversation, Madam Balasane. I'm just, a little. I would like you to expatiate more, because I know that speaking with human rights lawyers, I mean, this is a very, very emotional moment for all of the country to see not just soldiers, but people who symbolize the authority. They symbolize much more. To this country, their caskets are draped in Nigerian flags when they're being buried. I mean, the president attending to show that he's truly the commander of the armed forces, and that he truly cares about the forces. Some people have said, look, this cannot be just any other death. It's much more than any other Nigerian dying. I know that this might be a very controversial, and maybe, I don't know if this is the appropriate time to talk about this, but in this regard, it shouldn't there be so much more? I mean, we've heard the president talk about how the people who carried this out should not go unpunished. This scenario in Okwama, isn't it very different from the situation in Tundubiri, which you've tried to also highlight?
Well, except if we want to say that there is any human being that is more human than the other, which I disagree with. And this is not just my perspective. I think all of us can all be agreed that we are all human. But there is a sense in which the symbolism of 17 soldiers being killed in the process of trying to foster peace becomes jarring. And that I agree. But then also, you see, any country that is unable to account for the loss of one person will not be able to account for the loss of 1 million. When I bring the issue of Tudunbiri, we're talking about close to 300 people who were killed via 2 airstrikes. And in between those 2 airstrikes, there was 30 minutes in between. So if the first one was a situation where it was mistaken, you also want to wonder what happened afterwards. But then Colonel Dari spoke about post-mortem. We still haven't had a post-mortem of what happened in Tudunbiri. Who did what that caused such loss of human lives? I mean, however you want to count it, when you count the numbers 1 up to 300, you're counting a lot of people, And so with that, you also don't want to create a country where any set of people will feel entitled to violence. And it's because as a country, we have not learned to account for these kind of situations that they continue to occur. The justice system itself has not, and when I talk about justice system, I don't mean the courts. I mean, what is the process of accounting for this kind of situations? Have they been clinical? Have they proven to be true and transparent? Because if we have had in the time past a situation where those who do the crime do the time, innocent people are excluded from being held accountable for things they do not know, then it's going to help in terms of the process of justice. But we have not seen that. So let me be able to say in clear terms that no lie is greater than the other. And this is not to advocate for anybody being killed at all, not the military, not the civilians, not anybody. But we also need to evaluate the backstory. What are some of because there's an entire ecosystem of insecurity in our country. That is the insecurity that causes the loss of 17 soldiers in Delta State, or the insecurity that causes the loss of over close to 300 people in Chudembiri. There's an entire ecosystem. Who are those who are creating this situation that fosters the insecurity system that leads to this killing? Because if we're not able to find out the instigators, the collaborators, the perpetrators, the sponsors of this insecurity, we're just going to be treating just the symptoms, but we will not be able to get to the core of the issue. So it's important that we get to the root of the issues. Where did the rain begin to beat? Once we're able to get to the root, then we'll now begin to see how we can walk through that up to the process where we find justice for the military, justice for civilians, and justice for anyone who is a Nigerian.
Let me take this to Colonel Dare. Interestingly, he's also a lawyer, even though he's a retired soldier. Colonel Dare, I don't know if you agree with Ms. Ballason here on the points that she has made in terms of a system that a total lack of accountability in our system, which seems to force people to want to take matters into their own hands. And maybe that's the reason why, you know, in times past, we've heard situations like Zaki Biam, we've heard situations like Odi, you know, where we did not really have a process. Now, this has happened. Some people have said, oh, let there be an independent judicial panel, let there be, you know, a joint effort between the Delta State government and the federal government. You know, all manner of propositions are being made. Do you think that this gaping hole in our justice system and our accountability system is sometimes what also forces fear among citizens?
Well, Maokwe, thank you very much. I have listened to my learned sister, Gloria Ballason. She spoke specifically about the Kaduna unfortunate incident. Well, you see, some of these things, like there are unintended consequences of military operation. It was an accident. It was an accident because there's nowhere that the military, whose role it is to even protect Nigerians, to protect lives and properties, will now go and start to kill the people that they're expected to protect. So it was an accident. And these things happen even in the sophisticated world. You know, accidents do happen. Sometimes, you know, when there are crises, when you have this situation of war, you are not able to identify, to pinpoint exactly who the enemy forces are. So it was just one of those unfortunate incidents, and I'm sure that the military has expressed a lot of regrets over that. Now, having said this, back to the instant case, the Okwama unfortunate massacre of these innocent soldiers. Well, I welcome the investigative, or rather the investigation, the ongoing investigation, because I believe that one must have been set up. But how it is constituted, well, I don't think I really have any say about that. But all I'm interested in, and like most Nigerians at this point in time, is to bring these perpetrators to justice so that they don't get away with it. And that should just be the focus. Because these Nigerians that have been killed, this action, unfortunately, has a collateral effect, collateral damage on the entire nation. First, to the military itself. To the military, because this is highly demoralizing. It's going to affect the morale of the military. But, well, true, they say time really does heal. With time, I believe that 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 will be taken care of. But what about the families? The families of these unfortunate, these victims, you know, they are also Nigerians. They are civilians. So how do we get them to bear this irreplaceable loss? The only way to this is to ensure that the perpetrators are brought to justice. I welcome a judicial panel, you know, because the military, or the Nigerian military that I know, I respect the rule of law. Because you must have noticed that in all the military formations now, they have a human rights desk there. See, it's everything is still work in progress though. But I'm sure they respect the rule of law, and justice is what everybody is looking forward to at this point in time. Yes, she cited the case of Zaki Biam. That was then. Zaki Biam incident happened. But even at that too, I think there was an investigation that was carried out. So, but the bottom line is that I'm sure all the authorities that are concerned are also Nigerians, and they're listening. This time around, I'm sure there's a new sheriff in town. For the president to even attend the burial of these fallen gallant soldiers, it sends a lot of positive signals that it's not going to be business as usual. So let's keep fingers crossed, and hopefully things will unfold. And whosoever are the perpetrators of these heinous crimes, they will be brought to book.
Okay, Colonel Dare, you've spoken, made some submissions, but one of the things I want to ask is, what lessons, what can we draw from all of this? Now, and Ms. Balasin, you can also weigh in on this. The fact that the soldiers or the military men said were reported to have been on a peace mission to ensure that peace is restored between two communities that have been known to go at each other for one reason or the other, for fishing in the wrong place or for farming in the wrong place and all of that. Was that the role of the military? And I use that the former chief of defense staff used a phrase like this "see finish" when he was speaking at the opening of the joint task force conference. He used the word "see finish." Are there lessons that can be drawn from this so that the military can go back? He said a rethink, a review of the civic roles of the military needs to be done. Is that part of the lessons that the military needs to take up, even as we're trying to find justice for all?
Well, the role of the military, like I explained earlier, also includes suppression of insurrection, law and order. I don't have the full facts of about the two communities that are in dispute, that have crisis over this land issue. But we have witnessed, even in the past, and some currently, where land disputes have resulted into wanton killings of innocent citizens of the various communities that has been so escalated beyond what one can imagine. So, of course, the first responders in crisis situation is the police force. And there's a drill. And once the police gets overwhelmed, the military is on standby to be called in. So I wouldn't know if that procedure, has been taken care of. But of course, this investigation will unravel most of these things. But lessons for the military, lessons for Nigerians.
Let me ask you this as we wind down on this conversation. The military has put out 8 pictures of those who are allegedly involved in this occurrence. How significant is that? What are Nigerians expected to take away or draw from that? What are we to expect?
Well, what we should expect is that the community, or Nigerians generally, wherever these 8 people are hibernating, they should bring them out and hand them over for justice. Definitely the military that I know, they are not going to just grab them, dump them in the guard room or something. No, there are processes. At this point in time, I'm sure the judiciary will have to take its own role in prosecuting. Or first, there has to be investigation, and then before they are prosecuted if found guilty. That's what I believe should be the process.
Well, the president, as have many other Nigerians, has called on the communities not to shield those people who may have been involved in all of these occurrences. And you have also heard the governor of Delta State speaking in the same light. Exactly what should be happening right now? Because those communities, I don't know if the peace mission was successful, and that the Okwama and Okoloma communities are now at peace and there is no trouble, even as a result of all of this that is happening now. So what kind of appeal should be going on? What kind of communication, what kind of collaboration should be happening within the federal and state government so that this does? I heard the officer whose track we played earlier saying, this will not happen again. How do we ensure that this doesn't happen again? It's the armed forces, and we understand the meaning of the word force. But how do we appeal to communities all over the nation where such restive situations are to ensure, particularly at the leadership levels, that these things don't happen at all?
Well, crisis is part of social engineering, it's part of human existence. But there are mechanisms, there are ways of resolving crisis. So I think the important thing here is to ensure that these mechanisms, these procedures are activated. Okay. For example, my sister Gloria spoke about the Federal Lands Commission. So there are agencies. So these people, they are being funded. So they should wake up to their responsibilities.
Okay, let me ask.
They should do their job.
Okay, let me ask, Madam, your last words on this conversation, Ms. Balasin. How do we ensure that our social engineering involves situations where these things don't happen again? You've mentioned at least 2 other incidences that happened before this one. How do we forestall such, as some would say, avoidable killings of Nigerians in whatever guise they are?
I think at the very root, we need to look at security merchants are. There is an entire industry for insecurity in Nigeria, and this is something that we have been unwilling to review. We don't have a capacity problem, we have a real problem. Whether it is the issue in Delta or the insecurity around the country, who are those who are benefiting from fueling this insecurity? Can we now unmask them? We've had people, for example, there was Shegumi who was speaking about the terrorists and talking about how that they have not been attended to. You see, once we begin to call people who carry out criminal activities and we convert them to freedom fighters rather than who they are, then we design a template of saying that as a country, we want to profile our country as one where those who wreak the highest havoc should have the highest attention. And so we must take the spotlight from those who are wreaking this havoc by bringing them to book. That is at the root level. The other part is that there is a need for relevant agencies to move into engagement where situations occur. This is not business. This is, we want to solve problems. So those who are most equipped should be called in to address these issues. The third is that wherever there is situation of violence and insecurity, whether they are civilians or armed forces, they should receive the right kind of attention. I hope that the conversation we're having now is not just going to cease, because we assume that, oh, if the days roll by, that time heals. But let me tell you, people's lives stop.
Be able to take any more of this at this time, but I'm sure it's an ongoing conversation which we'll bring to you another time. Gloria Balasin is a legal practitioner and CEO of House of Justice. Thank you so much for your time, madam. And we've also had with us here in the studio Colonel Yomi Dari, retired security consultant and former director, Nigerian Army Legal Services. Thank you so much, Colonel, for your time.
Thank you, Ayo.
Sure. Unfortunately, life is not on pause. Business continues, and that's what's up next. Business Morning on Sunrise Daily.